Hey, what is up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys day 17 of the Halloween movie review series, and today I'm going to be reviewing Saw 5. This is the fifth Saw. I'm actually, ironically enough, almost done with it. I only have two more Saws to watch, and then I'm done. Which I kind of find ironic. It felt like these went by like that. But ironically enough, the Halloween franchise felt like that took forever to get through. Maybe because towards like the middle, and then obviously the last two were just so bad that it felt like forever. But this one just but Saw, it felt like it literally didn't take that long. It felt like it went by like that. So that's one positive I can give Saw over the Halloween franchise, is that it goes by when you sit down and watch it, it goes by very quickly. And I'm probably going to say that in like the next two movies are going to be very slow and they're going to be awkwardly paced and stuff like that. So knowing me, that's probably going to be what happens. But yeah, so they decided to make another Saw. Obviously, I think it made sense after everything that had happened in the last film. You kind of had to follow that up with this film. And I actually was fine with it. Well, you know, the fact that they did that. Now, I'm going to say this. I've already kind of read what people thought about it. Apparently, not a lot of critics liked this one. And while I will agree that this is probably, out of the four that I've seen, the worst, well, I guess five, because this counts as five. Out of the five that I've seen, this is probably the worst one. I just don't think it's as great as the other four. I will say this, that I don't think this one is bad at all, actually. I actually think that it's good. There's a bit, I'll admit there are some moments that I don't like in this movie, and that I don't think that this movie does as well as the other four do, but I don't think that this movie is really bad. And yeah, I just don't think it's bad at all. I think it's like a good film. It's not terrible, but it's not great. I think the fourth one, was better, and I think, like I said, 1 through 4 were better, but I think 5, I don't think 5 is anything to sleep on. I thought 5 was good. But anyhow, let me just start reviewing the movie. So this movie this time was directed by David Hackle, and I believe this is his first time he directed it, because before, originally, all of them were directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. I don't exactly know what happened to him, so that would be something to look up. Pretty much after Saw 3, he decided he didn't want to direct another Saw. He says he wanted to make time for his other project, Rebuild a Genetic Opera, but then he signed on to direct Saw 4, but he explained that before shooting could begin on Rebuild the Genetic Opera, there was a gap of time during which the songs were being pre-recorded, and he would be able to direct Saw 4 during the period. And then obviously, because I'm guessing that was why, is because he had other projects coming. I just wanted to quickly read that. So yeah, it was directed, but this time it was directed by David Hackle. That was produced by Greg Hoffman, Mark Berg, and Oren Coles, the same people as it was before. This movie was written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan. And this movie is obviously based off the brainchild of James Wayne and Lee Wainell. And the movie is edited by Kevin Griot. I don't know how to say his name. And it's produced by Twisted Pictures, and it was distributed by Lionsgate Films. And the movie itself came out on October 24th, 2008, and the movie had a $10.8 million budget. I believe, unless I'm mistaken, this actually has the most budget for any of the Saw films that I've reviewed so far. It's only 8 more cents, but take it as you can get them, right? So yeah, other than the stuff I just mentioned about the directors, how they changed and stuff, there really wasn't like a big story about why this movie was created. They just kind of all I've heard was how it was. They just talk about like who wrote it and where it was filmed and everything, and it was pretty much the exact same location. It really wasn't anything different. And the movie starts off. It Yeah, so the movie starts off. It shows but yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. So the movie starts off. It starts right off with the Saw game, and we meet Seth Baxter, and he's chained down to a table, and pretty much he's there because he's murdered somebody before, and he was only put away for 5 years due to a technicality. He was technically supposed to be put away for 25. So he was unjustly released and didn't really learn anything from his lesson. So he's there to finally learn something from his lesson. And there's going to be, they have this pendulum that is swinging back and forth. And in 30 seconds, it's just going to cut right into him. And he has to destroy his hands, which makes sense because he's used those hands to murder people in order to save himself. So he does it. He fails the game. The thing cuts him right open, and then we see through the hole. We see somebody watching it, which we were supposed to assume it was Detective Mark Hoffman because of everything that happened in the last film. So that was the case. Then it kind of cuts back to where pretty much the ending scene of Saw 3, not Saw 3, Saw 4. And if you haven't seen my review for either of those, then check them out. And this is after Agent Peter Strom was locked into the hospital room where Jigsaw's dead body was, and he opens a secret door that's in there, and he finds a tape recorder that's just hanging there, and he gets one that he should either walk away, or if he doesn't walk away, that this room's gonna forever be his tomb. And that gets important later on in the movie. So Peter Strom tells him, fuck you, and he walks through this room anyways. He gets attacked by somebody in a pig mask that we were supposed to have assumed was Mark Hoffman, which I think was pretty much, we already knew because he was the only one that was really there. And when Peter Strom comes to, he is sitting in a chair, and there's his head's in a glass box that's an unbreakable glass, and he starts struggling. He tries to go for his gun or something to get him out of here, but all of his stuff that would have been in his pocket, like his cell phone and everything, has been placed onto a table where he can't reach it. And there were these containers of water that were filling up this box that would have just drowned him. And Peter Strom finds a steel needle in his pocket, and he stabs his throat. And this actually ended up saving his life, because when he was when his head was fully underwater, the hole in his throat helped him be able to breathe again. And then back up, and the EMTs show up, because I forgot to mention in Saw 4 that Peter Strom had called for backup before he went in before he went into the building, and we find out pretty much that everybody has died except for Detective Hoffman, which was very convenient. And he actually ended up saving Corby, I don't know how to say her name, Denlin, who was the daughter of Jeff and Glenn Denlin. So yeah, he saves her, and makes himself look like a hero pretty much. And he talks about, he pretty much makes up a lie how he tried to save Riggs, but he couldn't make it, and then he says that everybody was dead, he tried to save him. And then we find out that Peter Strom survived, and he has a hole right through his throat, right in his neck. and he has to be taken on a gurney, and he has to be taken to the hospital. So then, yeah, later on, we see Joe Tuck, and she goes to I don't know what this place is called, but this is pretty much where Jigsaw, leaves it. I don't forget what they call this, but the Jigsaw, after he died, left Joe a box that contains grave importance. That he needs her to do, that she'll know what to do with once he dies. He actually cut a very good emotional speech, talking about everything that happened in the clinic and everything and all the relationship. It was actually a very good speech. Then Detective Hoffman gets awarded and honored pretty much for saving all of his for saving that little girl and pretty much taking down Jigsaw, because they pretty much had found out he'd been dead at this point. And ironically enough, everybody in his team that was on his team is dead. Riggs, Carrie, Tap, Sean, everybody's dead. So he gets awarded, and that's actually pretty that actually is pretty suspicious right there. And then he goes into his office and he gets a note that says, "I know who you are." Now if you see the movie at the time, I'm not going to say what happens in the movie 7 because that kind of gives away who this does. But if you see the movie at the time, you were supposed to have thought that this was Peter Strahm, but it wasn't Peter Strahm. It was actually somebody else. I'm not going to say who it was, but it actually wasn't him. So then he gets called to the hospital about Agent Perez, and pretty much we find out Agent Perez has died because of the events of Saw 4, and Dr. Hoffman goes to check on Peter Strahm. Peter Strahm gets suspicious of Detective Hoffman. Agent Strahm asks why Agent Perez said his name last, and he gets suspicious about how Peter Strahm came out of that building barely alive with a hole right in his neck, right in his throat, but yet Detective Hoffman only walked out with a few scratches, and the fact that he's the last guy in his detective agency, so he's pretty much suspicious that Hoffman is about Hoffman's motives and stuff. But Hoffman, talks about how he had been on the Jigsaw case for years, and he finally caught him. He also found it suspicious that Jigsaw got caught, and he just something isn't sitting right with Peter Strahm. So then eventually another agent comes in. It's Agent Dan Erickson. I think he's like the boss. And Peter tells Erickson that he wants to talk to Joe Tuck one last time, but Erickson refuses. He puts him on medical leave and tells him that he's off the Jigsaw case, and this makes Peter Strahm upset. And I'm gonna come back to this story later on, because this becomes a big story later on. But yeah, Peter Strahm's all upset that he was off the Jigsaw case, because he's become obsessed with finding out the case of Jigsaw. So then it cuts to a game. We meet these 5 people, and the 5 people's names were Britt, Luby Gims, Charles, Malik, Ashley, and Britt, Luba, Charles, Malik, Ashley. That's it, actually. And they're chained to collars, and these collars are gonna are connected to razor blades that will cut their throats off. Pretty much they wake up and they have no clue who each other are. And Charles, except for Charles, he actually knows who Ashley is. She knows that she used to work for the fire department and write reports, but we found out that she got fired for writing a false report, which gets very important later on. And then, Ashley gets concerned when he actually knows her, but he doesn't say how he knows her. And Then what happened next? So pretty much they're all concerned about why they're there. Jigsaw comes up on the screen. Well, not him, but the doll, the Billy doll, and he talks about how somehow they're all connected with each other that led him to this game, and their instincts are going to tell them to do one thing, but they should do the opposite. And they have these 4 keys that are in these glass boxes that will unlock these collars. Well, 5 keys anyways. And yeah, pretty much Malik loses it. They're trying to figure out too how they're connected. Luba comes to the conclusion maybe they'll all come from money, but we find out that Charles and Ashley don't. So Malik starts to lose it. He starts going off on Charles when he doesn't answer him about how he knows everybody, and this sets the timer to go off. And I think I forgot to mention is also if they don't get to these out of the room in time, they'll explode because there's bombs connected into the room. And also if they don't get to the key in time, they'll be cut with the razor blade. And everybody's able to get the key except for Ashley. She got her head cut off. I didn't really think the effects looked all that great, but she got her head cut off. And then they go into the next room, and Charles they all introduce themselves and say who they work for. We find out that Luba gives building permits about who could build buildings. We find out that Britt built a building. I actually have it written down. She's the vice president of a real estate company. Charles is a journalist who writes for a columnist, and Malik is pretty much a bum. That's pretty much how I can describe that. And the next game they have to go through is they have to because the bomb explodes, and they have to get these there's going to be another set of bombs that's going to go off around 4 corners, and the only safe place to go is they have to go inside like the sewers pretty much. And there's only 3 keys that's going to allow them all that's only going to work to get for them to get open, and that are on top of these glass jars. So they break them. Charles beats up Malik, and was just going to leave Malik for dead. Everybody's able to get a key. Malik tries to go for one, but Charles prevents him from doing so. And Lubo actually saves Malik. She hits Charles right in the back of the head. They go inside the sewer containers, and then Charles explodes and he dies, which I was very disappointed about, because he was actually the one out of the 5 people that actually had the best character out of everybody. He was the best person out of this whole thing, and yeah, he died, and then it was kind of sad, because a lot of these people, because Malik, oh my gosh, his character was awful. His acting really wasn't that great either, but he was pretty much a punk bitch during this whole thing. It was bad. I can't really say Ashley, because she died the first scene, like pretty much in the first game. We didn't really get to know who she was. Luba wasn't anything that fantastic, and then you had I actually didn't mind Britt. I thought she had a pretty decent character, but yeah, Malik's character, oh my god, that was bad. Yeah, so after they explode, Luba grabs the pipe that she used onto Charles, and they go into the next stage of the game. And I'm going to kind of get away from talking about this for a bit, and I'm going to talk about the second story, kind of dive into that. So next, Peter Strom sneaks into the FBI agency, and pretty much he doesn't want to. he's not letting this Jigsaw thing go. He's going to solve the thing himself, whether he has to sneak to or not. So he tries to look up records on Mark Hoffman, see if there's any criminal records. He doesn't find any. Then he looks up. Then he gets Mark Hoffman's, like, all of his records about all of his, I guess, it's all of his Saw test victims, but I think these were all like his. He finds like a record book of every game that Hoffman had. Now that I'm talking about this, it's kind of weird that was all of a sudden there. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that Hoffman planted it there, because there's no way that could have been there all this time. Because if it was, then yeah, the people at the FBI agency must really suck at solving cases, because they could have caught him a long time ago if they had just looked at Hoffman's records. But yeah, then he looks up Seth Baxter. We find out that Seth Baxter murdered a woman. Now, this is the same woman when Detective Hoffman goes into his office. We see that there's that same woman on the picture. We don't exactly know who this woman is. We kind of find out who it is later on. And then Peter Strom leaves, but Agent Erickson catches him, and he's wondering what he's doing here. Peter Strom makes up a story about how he's gonna take medical leave. He was just picking up some stuff, and Agent Erickson's very suspicious. So then Agent Strom goes into the exact location where Seth Baxter's Saw game took place, and it kind of gives us like a little bit of a visual of what was actually going on when this happened, and how Hoffman was watching it. It actually kind of shows us this stuff. We find out that Hoffman cut a puzzle piece in there like it was a jigsaw puzzle piece, and we actually found out that what we saw earlier was a flashback. Pretty much Hoffman, this guy murdered somebody that Hoffman was close to, and who we find out is his sister. And Hoffman made it look like a jigsaw game, so that way he could murder this guy, which I actually thought was clever. I liked that. The FBI had gotten called. They show a flashback of that, and then it shows. Then later on, Peter Strom, he notices that after the Seth Baxter situation, he had taken all the other victims. That's pretty much when he had started to become involved in the jigsaw games. And every victim that was in the first 3 movies, he had pretty much taken all of them. There's a list of names in them. And then it shows a flashback of how Jigsaw and Hoffman met and how they became an alliance. So Hoffman's going home after being out, and he goes up the elevator. John Kramer's in there with him. He drugs him and kidnaps him. And when Mark Hoffman wakes up, he finds out that he's tied down, and he's also tied to a shotgun. And if he moves his hands too much, it's connected to the trigger, and it'll shoot him right in the throat and kill him. And Jigsaw's not happy pretty much that Hoffman took credit for his work, and it was poor work. He even acts like a smartass, saying that the razor he used for the pendulum should have been a different type of razor, which I thought was funny. And Jigsaw wants him to look at himself in the mirror. He pretty much talks about how he's upset that he murdered Seth Baxter. He says that everybody deserves a chance, but Hoffman doesn't agree. He says that he didn't deserve the chance because he murdered his sister, and it even shows the flashback of Hoffman finding his sister, which her name was Angela Hoffman, just dead. And we also found out that after this happened, Hoffman became an alcoholic, and he was just waiting for vengeance, and Hoffman wanted to, Jigsaw wanted him to see how much vengeance can really change a person, and he still doesn't feel like he's fully vindicated. And Jigsaw then tells him that he's Jigsaw. John Kramer tells him that he's Jigsaw, and this surprises Hoffman, which shouldn't have been a surprise because he had pretty much told him it slightly, but whatever. And he gives him an option. He can either arrest him or he can enter the rehabilitation stage, because if you arrest him, he won't really feel fully rehabilitated. His life will still be messed up. But if he doesn't arrest him, he can slowly start to rehabilitate himself. And he lets Detective Hoffman go. Detective Hoffman threatens to kill him, and Jigsaw says, well, you could do that too, but then you still wouldn't feel rehabilitated. Your life would just continue to go back to normal. You could possibly get arrested. And he also says that his sister probably wouldn't want him to do that, so he doesn't kill him. And then this is pretty much after this, Hoffman and Jigsaw became an part of the game. They set up all the Saw games, and overall, I actually love this scene a lot. Just the interaction that John Kramer and Detective Mark Hoffman had with each other was awesome. Kind of seeing Mark Hoffman, how he was a part of this game was actually, I thought, good. I liked it. And this was just an awesome scene back and forth with each other. So I liked it a lot. Then it cuts to later on. It cuts to the present. Detective Hoffman, he had earlier tried to call Erickson, pretending he was calling Strom, and then he gets a hold of Erickson, and he pretty much kind of throws Strom under the bus. He would act like he wants to talk to Strom about the Jigsaw case, about how Peter Strom has suspected someone was in collusion with Amanda and Jigsaw, and Erickson saying, well, who do you think he might be? And he said, well, maybe he suspected somebody on this inside. So this gives Erickson even more suspicion that Peter Strom's possibly part of it. And later on in the movie, Hoffman had stolen Peter Strom's cell phone. So he calls Peter Strom using his cell phone. And when Erickson picks it up, he hangs up. And he pretty much gets him even more suspicion. So then he's having the FBI agency track Peter Strom's cell phone. Then, and to which they can't find it because there's no signal where he is. Then, Peter Strom continues his investigation, going through the Saw games. Going through if Hoffman's involved with it. He goes into the place where the first Saw game took place with I don't remember his name, but it was the first guy. The guy that cut himself. His name was... I'm going to see if I can find it. It was Paul Leahy. That was who it was. So yeah, it was Paul. And it shows that whole game, and it shows Jigs, and it actually cuts to a flashback of when John Kramer and Hoffman kidnapped him. Paul was about to cut himself again with a beer bottle, and then he gets attacked. He gets drugged by them. He's able to fight him off a little bit, but just the numbers game's too much, so they are able to drug him. They have to drug him twice, and Hoffman at first is very he's not sure about this. He feels like this is just too much, and Jigsaw tells him that he can't let emotion get in the way of life. And he said that tonight he's going to learn what rehabilitation's like. So he has him watch his death. And Hoffman then tells him that there's an agent getting too close to the case and is starting to figure out who Jigsaw really is. And he reveals that it was Tap. And Jigsaw tells him that he wants Hoffman to lead him to somebody else, a doctor. And obviously then it shows the laser pen of Dr. Gordon's from the first film, and then it shows the scene where Tap actually shows him it. I actually kind of like that scene a lot. Then it shows how then Peter Strahm goes into the room where Saw 2 the game took place, and it shows Hoffman and Jigsaw setting up that game. And Hoffman's asking Jigsaw a lot of questions, like why Amanda's in the game, and how he assumes that everything's gonna go according to plan. And one of the quotes that John Kramer uses exactly is, "If you're good at anticipating the human mind, it leaves nothing to chance." And this becomes very important in this movie. And then that was pretty much. Then later on, Peter Strahm goes into the same room that he was in earlier in the movie where he got kidnapped. Where Jigsaw died, and he pretty much finds out that his whole agency, including himself, were all supposed to die. So that way Hoffman would come off being the hero, and he was going to be in control of of Saw, of the Jigsaw's games. And it even shows the scene where John Kramer was on oxygen, and he tells they were talking about Amanda's test, and Hoffman was talking about how Amanda was going to fail him, and he says we'll see. And this actually becomes important because they're going to talk about in the next movie why Amanda actually killed Nurse Lynn. And it actually even showed the scene where Lynn and Amanda actually come in, which I liked. Then what was next? Next was I'm just gonna now. So yeah, I talked about all that. I actually liked talking about that part of the story. Then next was I'm gonna cut back to the game now. So next, Luba, Bui, and Malik all go into this room that has a bathtub that's filled with blood, and pretty much what they have to do. Well, pretty much then they find out why they're there. We find out that Luba pretty much took a bribe and gave someone a building permit that didn't deserve it, and Bui set up a building that was destined to get exploded. And Malik doesn't actually say why he's there, which kind of becomes important later, because actually he was the most important part of the reason they were there. So then the next part of the game is they all have to make a shock, so that way the door will open before the bombs explode again. And then they Bui and Luba all act like they're gonna kill Malik, but instead Bui electrocutes Luba right in the throat, and they put her body in the tub, and they electrocute her dead body, and the door opens, and then they go in there. And then they find the next game they have to do is they see that there's a container that's going to fill up with some sort of liquid that's going to help open the door, and they're going to be completely out of there. But what was I going to say? The problem is the thing that's going to be filled up is blood, and it's going to be like 10 quarts of blood. And there's these holes that they have to stick their hands in to cut them, and they find out that there was 5 holes. I know that sounds wrong to say that, but there was 5 of them. Yes. So that becomes a problem because also too, that there's a problem because the thing that they have to put in there was, like I said, blood. And the amount of blood that they have to put in there, 2 people wouldn't survive putting that amount of blood in there. They die pretty instantly. And then Bree tries to pull out one of the keys that they use to unlock their collars to unlock the door, and she pulls out all 5 keys, and then she finds out that all the keys were the same. So then she notices that the actual point of this game was that they were all supposed to have worked together. All of them were supposed to suffer a small shock when they were in the bathtub. They were all supposed to like work together and go into like this. Some of them were supposed to go into the same sewage thing when the room exploded. And I'm guessing somehow they were all supposed to work together to get one key from the glass box. But they took it as if they were supposed to eliminate each of them, which is a problem. Now, obviously, if it was me, I would have assumed working together would have been the first thing to do. I don't really know why they didn't think of that. So yeah, they were shocked about it. So now they pretty much had to cut their hands themselves and donate like a lot of blood. And there's like these power saws that are connected to this machine. So Malik confesses, saying that he actually did know who Charles was. Charles wrote a story about him. He was paid by a drug dealer in heroin. It was a lot of heroin. To burn down a building. It was supposed to be abandoned, but he found out that it wasn't abandoned. There were 8 families in there, and pretty much that's what actually connected all these people was fire, because Ashley destroyed the evidence on it. Charles didn't write through his story. Luba didn't give the permit, and Bree kind of like set up the whole thing, and they find out they actually deserve to be there. So then they cut their their hands off, and the whole thing fills up with blood. The door opens, but they've lost so much blood they just can't even stand up. They're almost near death. And then Malik, you could just see his hair completely tear off. Now, I'll admit, as much as I hate Malik's character throughout this movie, that last scene, he was awesome in that scene. I'll give him that. And as this all happens, Peter Strahm follows Mark Hoffman back to his house. He goes underneath, and I guess he was just going to follow him and pretty much revealed that he exposed him. That was not the case, because he goes in the house, he opens the floor down below to the basement, and he goes down into this room, and we see the glass box with a ton of broken glass in it that Jigsaw made in the last movie in this room. So I did say this box becomes important in the film, in the series. And the only way that Peter Strahm's going to survive the room is by entering the box. But then he hears something. We saw Detective Hoffman was, walking behind him. We also see Agent Erickson come in. He finds Bree and Malik just near death, so he calls for the EMTs. They don't say what happens to them, but I'm assuming they died, because there's no way you lose that amount of blood and not die. So, especially too if we don't even know how long it takes to get the ambulance even down there to begin with and stuff. So then Hoffman comes into the room. He doesn't see Peter Strahm anywhere. Peter Strahm has his gun out, and Hoffman kind of realizes this, so he elbows him right in the face. They get into a fight. Peter Strahm kicks his ass, and he throws him right into the box. He closes the box, and then the door closes. And he can't open it. So Peter Strahm wants to know, wants Hoffman to tell him how to open the door. So then he points down with the evil smile to the tape recorder. He presses play, and then it says, and this is in Hoffman's voice too, that if you choose not to enter the glass box, this room will forever be your tomb, and your body will never be found. And it shows flashbacks of everything that was happening to Peter Strahm and how pretty much he was played by Hoffman, because what was happening was Joe Tuck even came to Erickson and saying that somebody was following her, and she thought that it was Peter Strahm, so that even gave Erickson even more suspicion that Strahm was a part of the game. It shows Strahm with his cell phone by the game that was being played, and he has all the and he even has Erickson's picture there, and he even has an IPP put out for Special Agent Peter Strahm, and pretty much he says that my legacy would have become yours, and now your body's never going to be found. And the reason is as this recording's playing, the walls start to close in, and Peter Strahm does everything he can to try to get out of it. He tries to shoot the box, but it's bulletproof, and then the walls crush his body, and his body just gets all crushed, and pretty much that's why his body's never going to get found, is because his body's been destroyed. And then that was the end of the movie. That was actually the end of the film. And I actually liked that ending. I actually liked the movie. The one thing I did not care for in this movie was the Saw game. I just really didn't care about that. The main story really was the stuff going on with Peter Strahm, Hoffman, and stuff like that. And I will admit the series isn't the same now that Jigsaw is dead. You know, he only really had cameo appearances in this movie. And it just wasn't the same. You didn't really get to see like Hoffman kind of like really take in his war with Jigsaw, because the main focus of the film was to kind of show how Hoffman got into Jigsaw's world, which I didn't mind that too much, but it kind of would have been nice if you kind of could have seen Hoffman actually in the role. You get to see it in the next two films, but it would have been so much better if you could have seen it in this film too. And I also didn't really care for some of the effects in the movie, like Ashley's head being cut off. That just looks so stupid. Some of the characters in this movie, like Malik, oh my gosh, he was annoying. There was somebody else that was annoying. This Luba wasn't that great of a character. There was just some characters that weren't that great in this movie. But watching this movie too, because I seen this movie before, and when I watched it the first time, I didn't really know where this was going, but I felt bad for Peter Strahm, because I knew where this was going, obviously, because I had seen this movie before, and I remember how it ended. I felt bad for Peter Strahm, because he got played. Hoffman hustled him, because pretty much he was one step ahead of Peter Strahm the entire time. And I kind of felt bad for Peter Strahm, because Peter Strahm did everything right. He pretty much tried to defend everybody, and then he his body got crushed. But that's what makes a great villain. They have to get one over sometimes on the good guys, and that's exactly what Hoffman did. And I'll admit, Hoffman, I think his character is right now good. I remember I loved his character at first, but now that I've kind of rewatched it back, I'm like, it's good, but it's not from what I remember. I have a feeling he'll get better once I see the second films, the next two films. But he's no Jigsaw. He's definitely better than Amanda was. Amanda was, she was bad. She wasn't bad, but it wasn't it was just kind of weird. But yeah, overall, if I had to rate this movie, like I said, I thought this movie was good. I didn't think it was the best. I thought it was definitely the worst out of the franchise so far, but I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was good. I liked the story that they kind of led up to with Peter Strahm and David Hoffman. I'll admit I could have done without the Saw game, but I guess they wanted to include a Saw game in some way, somehow. And this was kind of more of a detective type of, and they didn't want to make it seem like a detective type of movie, like Dexter, NCIS, Law and Order, and Death Note is. So they wanted to make it, they wanted to leave that Saw element in there. So yeah, I like the film. Overall, I thought this movie was good. If I had to rate the movie, I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's fantastic, but I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good movie. But that's pretty much it. My thoughts on this movie. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video for more content. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content, and click on the bell so that way every time I upload a video you guys will get the notification for it. And make sure you guys do the same thing for my Brothers channel. That's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.